Hey guys, on today's video I'm going to do one of my devil advocate type videos because a very popular image, meme, whatever you want to call it, on Twitter right now has been the would you rather question of would you rather restart your life at 6 years old with all the knowledge you have now or get $10 million instantly right now. So the original post had that the argument was that restarting at 6 years old would be better because basically you can get more money through betting and all that. Stop terrible disasters such as for older, if you're a little old, on the older side of things, you could stop disasters as terrible as like 9/11 or whatever. For the younger crew, which is mainly what Twitter's made up of, people more my age, 21 years oldish, around that age or even younger maybe, they're thinking of, some of the disasters that have happened since 2010. Especially you're looking at global issues, things like that. And the original argument also talked about, you make up for all your poor life choices you made throughout high school and college and things like that. But as soon as those arguments became popular, the alt arguments, the other side of the argument, immediately started revving up Twitter, and that's when the meme started to become popular, was that people fighting against the people originally saying, restart at 6 years old, it'll be great. People immediately had an adverse reaction to that, saying, why would I ever want to go through middle school again or go through wearing braces again when $10 million is plenty of money for me to live the rest of my life with? I don't need more money than that. And since the original argument was for going back to 6 years old, I'm going to also follow that alternative argument of just taking the 10 million and going with it. Aside from 10 million being plenty of money, I mean, $10 million for most people, the average person, would probably be more money than they could reasonably spend. And I also talked about in a previous video with money involved that dealing with $10 million can be tricky. It's not something where you can just take $10 million to the bank and hand it to the bank teller and they stick it in your bank account. You would have to talk to a financial person and find ways to diversify and invest and things like that, because a bank, or specifically the IRS, simply would not just allow people to deposit $10 million whenever they want. There would be some kind of investigation that is forced to happen. So it does require some thought and stuff, but the instant $10 million can be handled and would be more money than anyone could really need. So the argument of going back to 6 years old to make more money just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, just in that respect. But also, a lot of the arguments on Twitter were saying that, I would write down all the past Super Bowl winners or all the most recent lotto numbers or lotto numbers from when I was 6 years old, and then I would go back. The way I always phrase these questions is that it is, absolutely immediate. Like, you're on the spot, and right then and there you have to decide within, let's call it 10 seconds, whether you want to go back to be 6 years old or take $10 million, and everything happens immediately. If you start playing into those gimmicks of, you have a week to decide or something, you can set things up and write a novel about all the things you've learned over the past however many years since you've been 6 years old, that radically changes the question. I don't want to get into all that. So this is an instant decision, the way I'm going to be phrasing things. So let's just say you go back to 6 years old. You have all your intelligence, all your knowledge. You know what's going to happen over the next, in my case, I'm 21 years old. It'd be 15 years. I have 15 years of knowledge that I have before it even happens. So the first thing, as we all know from the movies like Back to the Future, time travel is tricky. If you go back in time and you start changing things, it could really mess up the future. For example, trying to think, let's say Michael Jackson died since I was 6 years old. If I went back in time and made sure somehow that Michael Jackson didn't die in the future, we don't know how that would influence our timeline. Maybe Michael Jackson decides to have a new lease on life, become president, and he starts running America. Don't know if that'd be a positive or negative, but it would be a radical change, and everything's in the realm of possibilities once you start changing things. So, me personally, if I did the 6 years back thing, my ultimate goal would be to change as little as possible, make sure that any changes I make are so minute and unnoticeable that they wouldn't cause a butterfly effect, which in of itself is me contradicting myself, because the whole point of the butterfly effect is that if you step on a butterfly, it could lead to like World War II, World War III. The time travel thing is just too much for me to deal with, which is why I want to take it. But for the sake of this argument and me proving why I think 10 million is better, I'm going to keep rolling with it. Aside from anything changing the timeline, also, if I went back to 6 years old, a lot of people, the immediate reaction was, if I go back to 6 years old, I could bet on whoever won the Super Bowl that year and convince my parents to put all their money on that Super Bowl winner. And trust me, first of all, no, you're not going to, at 6 years old, convince anyone to do anything betting-wise for you. You would have to wait until you're of age and make the bet yourself at around 18 years old. So for me, for example, and most people on Twitter, you're waiting 10, 12 years to get back up to 18 years old so that, I don't know why I said 10, 12, it's obviously 12 years, to get back to 18 years old. What are the odds that over those 12 years you still remember who won the Super Bowl that year? I know me personally, I am a big football fan. I couldn't tell you who won the Super Bowl when I was 18 years old off the top of my head. I could maybe figure it out. My guess is I think it was the year of the Eagles Super Bowl, the Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl. It might have been the Patriots-Atlanta Super Bowl, something like that. But again, it's not as easy as just, I remember all the Super Bowls. And again, you have to wait until you're 18 and can make bets yourself because no one's going to listen to a 6-year-old about what Super Bowl bets to place. And again, as I said a few times now, you start making changes like that, like your Biff from Back to the Future. Your family suddenly makes $10 million betting on all the Super Bowls and getting them right every time, especially weird ones like the Atlanta Super Bowl, the Eagles Super Bowl, things like that. If you start making bets that related to those Super Bowls where it's like, oh, who would have guessed at the beginning of the year that the Eagles were going to win against the New England Patriots? Or who would have bet that at the beginning of the Super Bowl game that the Patriots would make a big comeback like that? Like, you could place huge bets on those that would make you millions and millions of dollars. But if someone started looking at all those bets and piling them up, they would seem dramatic. So the whole betting on things would just be a wash for me. It just wouldn't be something I do. Like I said, I would try my best not to make any big changes. The only changes I would probably make and wouldn't be able to avoid making are the dumb decisions I made growing up, like all throughout middle school and high school, the dumb things I did. I'd probably avoid those, which, again, is going to change my future, but I just wouldn't, in good conscience, be able to make some of the decisions I made when I was younger. For example, a little one would be like when I was sick around middle school, high school. I used to try and tough out being sick and stuff until I was so sick I ended up getting hospitalized a few times or having to radically change my medications, get surgery, things like that. Having the knowledge I know now, if I was back in those shoes, as soon as I started getting sick, I would have immediately gone to the doctor and gotten the proper medication, which is, yes, the right thing to do, but I don't know how that's going to influence my future. A big part of my life has been the surgeries I went through and the different medications and hospitalizations and all that stuff. So, aside from, let's say you change absolutely nothing, you don't bet anything like that, you're still, for me, I'd be a 21-year-old person in the body of a 16-year-old going through, in the body of a 6-year-old going through 6-year-old life, which means I would be so much radically more mature and intelligent than everyone around me, aside from adults, that I would be incredibly lonely. You can't, as a 21-year-old, make friends with 6-year-olds beyond their level of humor and just interaction, social skills. It's just not really possible. And if you start making an argument like, oh, I could act like a 6-year-old, I could get along with 6-year-olds being a 6-year-old yourself, you're getting to the point where you might be changing who your character is as a person. That's another argument that I've kind of come up with that I don't know how true it is or not, but my guess is that if I went back to being a 6-year-old, by the time I reach 8 years old or so, my character would change so much that I would be an 8-year-old effectively. I wouldn't think about all the knowledge I have and stuff. It'd just be restarting my life, and maybe I wouldn't even make changes at that point. I just went back for nothing and repeated my life exactly the way it is. Also, you look at just like interacting as you go through middle school and high school. Like, I dated girls when I was in high school. I'm a 21-year-old person now. I couldn't be a freshman in high school dating freshman girls in high school because in my mind, I'm still a 21-year-old. That's not something that I could, in good conscience, ever do, even though my body and everything about me is of age, it just wouldn't be appropriate in my head. Another big thing would be the intelligence factor. I was a somewhat smart kid growing up, but if I had the intelligence of a 21-year-old college student at age 6, I would be on fast track to Harvard by age 12 probably. If I went all out and I was doing those math tables where it's just doing addition as fast as you can with the number 5, like I would be ripping through them and end up in Harvard or Yale or whatever. And I would, again, radically change how my life went, because spending 4 years at NJT has dramatically changed my life. And then with all those things adding up, a big thing that affects my decisions for all these arguments is the chance of experimentation, people finding out, all those kind of things. If somehow scientists found out that you traveled back in time to the age of 6, like they would have questions and you would be locked away in a room until they figured out how you were able to travel back in time, because that would be one of the most powerful powers that any society could think of. The time travel aspect is dramatic. Like I'm trying to find the words to emphasize how big it, like there is no trade secret that could ever be bigger than a nation finding out that they could time travel. For example, if you offered America either literally all the money in the world, they could have complete, like they could produce money like no one's business, or gold or whatever it may be, they would always choose time travel over that. They could have the most powerful weapons, all the money in the world. They could have all their allies become like part of their nation kind of thing. You could ask them whatever, but the ability to time travel would be not only dominating your own time, you can go back and make yourself the most dominant power of all history. If any nation became able to time travel, there is no doubt in my mind that someone would go back to the beginning of basically recorded history and ensure that the whole world is one nation dominated by one dude that's around today. Like, that's just how it would be. So that time travel thing is a secret that you would be, if you were time traveled, you would be probed until they somehow found out that secret, or you die. That's the only options. Now that I got really dark with that, I'm going to wrap this up just by saying, again, time travel is just way too messy of a situation for me to ever deal with it. Is it possible that I could make my life better if I went back in time to 6 years old? Sure. Is it also very, very possible I make my life dramatically worse by going back in time? Absolutely. The $10 million is more than enough money, I'm sure. I have people in my family that are financial planners and things like that. I'm sure I could talk to them and figure out how to deal with $10 million. I could blame it on winning a lottery thing or something like that. There would be questions. I might have to deal with the IRS. Who knows? But I feel like even if I had to use half the money just to get myself out of the hole and be able to deposit the money in my account, $5 million is more than enough for me to live on for the rest of my life. So that's how I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. I'll be back tomorrow almost definitely with reactions to what I thought the Super Bowl was like. Real quick, my pick is the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. I have some bets and stuff placed on it. I also believe for some of your prop bets, Demi Lovato is going to go over 2 minutes. I believe that there will be a great Gatorade pour. I don't know what the color of that Gatorade would be. My guess, it wouldn't be blue or purple. I would say red. In either case, red is most likely the color. I don't know any of the odds for that. But other than that, thank you all for watching. See you tomorrow.